The champagne glass sat on our granite countertop like a piece of evidence at a crime scene. Lipstick stained the rim, deep burgundy, not the soft pink Claire had worn to work that morning. I stared at it while sipping my coffee, noting how the morning light streaming through our floor-to-ceiling windows made the smudge look almost black. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. You're up early. Claire's voice cut through the silence as she padded into our designer kitchen, her silk robe trailing behind her like a royal train. Even at 7 in the morning, she looked put together, blonde hair perfectly tousled, skin glowing from whatever $100 cream she'd slathered on the night before. Couldn't sleep. I gestured toward the glass with my coffee mug. Entertaining last night? She followed my gaze and didn't even flinch. That should have been my first real warning. Oh, that. Olivia stopped by after you went to bed. We opened that bottle of Dom Perignon from your Christmas bonus. My sister-in-law, Olivia, the free-spirited art teacher who lived in a cramped apartment across town and wouldn't know Dom Perignon from grocery store champagne. Right. How thoughtful of her to match her lipstick to a $90 bottle of champagne, I said, watching Claire's face carefully. Very artistic. Claire moved to the coffee machine, a chrome monstrosity that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and began her morning ritual. Grind the beans, measure the water, pretend her husband was an idiot. You know how Olivia is with makeup. She's always trying new looks. Claire's tone was conversational, breezy. She'd perfected this voice during her 15 years as a corporate lawyer, using it to convince juries that her client's obvious guilt was actually reasonable doubt. I nodded and took another sip of coffee. Must have been quite the sisterly bonding session. I didn't hear her leave. She used the back door, didn't want to wake you. Of course she did. Through our meticulously landscaped backyard, past the motion sensor lights that would have lit up like a Christmas tree over the decorative fence that squeaked loud enough. Olivia was athletic, but she wasn't a ninja. Ben. Claire turned to face me, her coffee mug cradled in both hands like she was posing for a lifestyle magazine. We need to talk. 4 words that had never, in the history of marriage, preceded good news. I set down my mug and gave her my full attention. After 12 years together, I knew when Claire was building up to something big. Her courtroom instincts were kicking in, establish rapport, present evidence, go for the close. I've been thinking about us lately, about our marriage. She moved closer, perching on the bar stool across from me. Don't you think we've gotten a little stagnant? Stagnant. Like we were a pond growing algae instead of 2 people who'd built a life together. I thought about our recent date nights, our weekend trips to the mountains, the way she'd laughed at my terrible jokes just last week during dinner with friends. I thought we were doing pretty well, actually. We are. We're comfortable. But comfortable isn't passionate, is it? She reached across the granite expanse between us and touched my hand. Her fingers were cold, despite the warm coffee mug. When was the last time we really surprised each other? When did we last feel that spark? I studied her face, looking for tells. As a luxury travel executive, I'd learned to read people. The client who claimed they wanted adventure but really needed relaxation. The couple who said money was no object while mentally calculating every expense. Claire's pupils were slightly dilated, her breathing just a touch faster than normal. She was nervous. What are you suggesting? I think we should consider opening up our marriage. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. I felt something cold settle in my stomach, and it wasn't the coffee. Opening up, I repeated slowly, as in exploring connections with other people, separately. With full honesty and communication, of course. She spoke like she was presenting a business proposal, complete with bullet points and projected outcomes. It's not uncommon, Ben. Lots of successful couples do it. It can actually strengthen a marriage. I leaned back in my chair, processing. The lipstick on the champagne glass suddenly made perfect sense. This wasn't a spontaneous suggestion born from marital ennui. This was Claire asking for retroactive permission. How long have you been thinking about this? A few months. I've done research, read articles. There's a whole community of people who've made it work. She was gaining confidence now, warming to her theme. We're both attractive, successful people. Why shouldn't we enjoy that? And you have someone in mind already. It wasn't a question. Claire's poker face slipped for just a moment, a slight tightening around her eyes, the briefest pause before she answered. I think it would be healthier if we both explored options simultaneously. That way, neither of us feels left behind. Derek Lamont. The name popped into my head like a neon sign. Hedge fund manager, divorced, recently moved to our suburb from Manhattan. He'd been showing up at our social events with increasing frequency, always managing to corner Claire for intense conversations about market volatility and tax strategies. The kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits and talked about his Porsche like it was a beloved pet. This is about Derek, isn't it? Claire's composure cracked completely. Color flooded her cheeks, and she pulled her hand away from mine. This isn't about any one person, Ben. This is about us. About growing as individuals and as a couple. Right. And I'm sure Derek's growth potential has nothing to do with his 7-figure income or his penthouse views. You're being reductive. I'm being realistic. I stood up, suddenly needing distance from her perfectly reasonable tone and her perfectly logical arguments. How long, Claire? How long what? How long have you been sleeping with him? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Claire's coffee mug trembled slightly in her hands, and for a moment I saw past the polished exterior to something raw and guilty underneath. I haven't, she said finally. But I want to, and I thought, I hoped you'd understand. At least she was being honest now. I had to give her credit for that much. So let me get this straight. You want to open our marriage so you can sleep with Derek guilt-free, and in exchange I get to, what? Download dating apps and pretend I'm single? You make it sound sordid. Because it is sordid, Claire. You're asking me to give you permission to cheat. It's not cheating if we both agree to it. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Right. Nothing says romance like negotiated infidelity. Claire set down her mug and stood, drawing herself up to her full height. In heels, she was almost as tall as me, and she knew how to use that height to intimidate. It worked on opposing counsel and difficult clients. It had even worked on me, once upon a time. I'm trying to be honest with you, Ben. I could have just had an affair like half the wives in this neighborhood. Instead, I'm giving you the opportunity to be part of the decision. How generous of you. Don't be sarcastic. It doesn't suit you. And infidelity doesn't suit you. But here we are. We stared at each other across our beautiful kitchen, surrounded by all the trappings of our successful life. The sub-zero refrigerator covered in photos from our vacations. The wine rack filled with bottles we'd been saving for special occasions. The breakfast nook where we'd planned our future over Sunday morning crosswords. Think about it, Claire said finally. That's all I'm asking. Just think about it. She walked away, her silk robe whispering against her legs, leaving me alone with the evidence of her betrayal and the wreckage of our marriage. I picked up the champagne glass and held it up to the light. The lipstick stain was definitely not Olivia's shade. Too dark, too bold. It was the kind of color a woman wore when she wanted to be noticed, when she wanted to leave a mark. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at the screen, expecting work emails or appointment reminders. Instead, I saw a message from Sophie, the bartender at Murphy's Tavern downtown. Sophie knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. Saw your wife at Chez Laurent last night. She looked cozy with that Wall Street guy. Thought you should know. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. But the damage was done. Claire hadn't just been thinking about opening our marriage. She'd been conducting field research. I walked to my home office and fired up my laptop. As a luxury travel executive, I had access to exclusive resorts and private retreats all over the world. Places where wealthy people went to indulge their fantasies and escape their realities. If Claire wanted to explore new experiences, I'd be happy to facilitate that. After all, customer service was my specialty. I scrolled through my contacts until I found what I was looking for. Mountain Vista Resort, a secluded luxury destination in the Colorado Rockies. 5-star accommodations, world-class spa, complete privacy. The kind of place where secrets were born and marriages went to die. Perfect. I called Olivia that afternoon, catching her between classes at the community college where she taught art to adults who decided life was too short for unfulfilled dreams. Ben, is everything okay? You never call during work hours. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. A pause. I could hear students chattering in the background, the scrape of chairs on linoleum floors. Okay, shoot. Were you at my house last night drinking champagne with Claire? Another pause, longer this time. When Olivia spoke again, her voice was careful, measured. No, I was home grading papers and watching Netflix. Why? Claire said you stopped by after I went to bed, left through the back door so you wouldn't wake me. Ben. Olivia's voice was soft, sympathetic. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just tell me what you know about Derek Lamont. The hedge fund guy? He's a sleaze. Thinks his money makes him irresistible to married women. She paused. How long have you known? Since this morning. Claire wants to open our marriage. Jesus Christ. My thoughts exactly. I leaned back in my office chair, looking out at the city skyline through my floor-to-ceiling windows. Boston spread out below me like a game board, full of players making moves I couldn't see. I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. How would you like to spend a weekend at a luxury resort in Colorado? All expenses paid, 5-star accommodations, world-class spa. What's the catch? I smiled for the first time all day. You'd be going as my date. Olivia was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Olivia? Are you asking me to help you make Claire jealous? I'm asking you to help me give Claire exactly what she wants. An open marriage, full honesty and communication. I pulled up the Mountain Vista Resort website, scrolling through photos of couples enjoying romantic dinners and sunset hikes. She's planning a romantic getaway with Derek. I thought we should plan one too. Ben, I don't think... She's already sleeping with him, Olivia. The only question now is whether I'm going to sit home feeling sorry for myself, or whether I'm going to play the game she started. Another long pause. Then, when do we leave? 3 days later, I was loading luggage into my BMW while Olivia checked her makeup in the passenger mirror. She'd dressed for the part, designer jeans that hugged her curves, a cashmere sweater that brought out her green eyes, boots that added 3 inches to her height. She looked like exactly the kind of woman a successful travel executive would date. You sure about this? She asked as I pulled out of her apartment complex. Absolutely not, but I'm doing it anyway. The drive to Mountain Vista Resort took 6 hours through winding mountain roads that climbed steadily toward snow-capped peaks. Olivia dozed in the passenger seat while I listened to jazz and planned my next moves like a chess master thinking 3 steps ahead. I'd booked us the honeymoon suite, a sprawling penthouse with a private hot tub and panoramic mountain views. Claire and Derek were in the suite directly below us, a detail I'd confirmed through my contacts in the hospitality industry. The resort staff knew me well. I'd been sending clients there for years, and my recommendations carried weight. Holy shit, Olivia breathed as we pulled up the circular drive. Mountain Vista Resort rose from the landscape like something out of a fairy tale, all timber and stone and soaring glass, perfectly integrated with the natural surroundings. Valet attendants in crisp uniforms hurried toward our car. "Welcome to Mountain Vista Resort," the head valet said as I handed over my keys. "Mr. Walsh, isn't it? Marco asked me to tell you he's looking forward to seeing you again." Marco Delacroix, the resort's concierge, was a master of discretion who'd helped me arrange everything from surprise proposals to discreet divorces. If anyone could help me orchestrate the perfect revenge, it was Marco. We walked through the lobby, a cathedral of polished wood and native stone, with a massive fireplace crackling at the center. Guests lounged in leather armchairs, sipping wine and speaking in the hushed tones of people who paid premium prices for premium experiences. "Ben Walsh!" Marco appeared at my elbow as if summoned by magic. Tall and impeccably dressed, with silver hair and knowing eyes, he looked like Central Casting's idea of a European aristocrat. "So wonderful to see you again, and this must be the lovely Olivia." He kissed Olivia's hand with old-world charm, making her blush and giggle. The man was a professional. "Your suite is ready, of course. I took the liberty of arranging champagne and strawberries. I hope that's acceptable?" "Perfect. Has the other party arrived yet?" Marco's smile didn't waver, but his eyes sharpened slightly. "Yes. They checked in about an hour ago. Room 412, as you requested." "Excellent. We'll be in 512. Of course, if there's anything you need, anything at all, please don't hesitate to call." The elevator ride to the 5th floor was silent. Olivia stared at the ornate brass buttons while I watched the floor numbers climb. When the doors opened, we stepped into a hallway lined with original artwork and fresh flowers. "This is insane," Olivia whispered as I slid the key card into our door. "Ben, this suite probably costs more than I make in a month." 2 months, I corrected, pushing open the door. The honeymoon suite was everything the website had promised and more. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of snow-capped peaks. A king-sized bed dominated the bedroom, covered in Egyptian cotton and cashmere throws. The bathroom featured a jetted tub big enough for 2 and a shower with multiple heads and steam options. But it was the living area that really impressed. A sunken conversation pit arranged around a gas fireplace, with a wet bar and a dining table set for intimate dinners. French doors opened onto a private balcony with a hot tub and outdoor seating. "Jesus," Olivia breathed, walking to the windows. "How do you live like this?" "I don't. This is special occasion territory." I joined her at the windows, looking down at the resort's grounds. Guests strolled along winding paths, some heading toward the spa, others toward the hiking trails that disappeared into the forest. But Claire doesn't know that. "Speaking of Claire," Olivia pointed toward the balcony below ours. "Is that her?" I looked down and felt my stomach clench. Claire stood on the balcony of Suite 412, wearing a red dress I'd never seen before. She was laughing at something Derek was saying, her head thrown back in genuine amusement. He stood behind her, his hands on her waist, nuzzling her neck. "That's her." "She's beautiful," Olivia said quietly. "Yes, she is." And he's exactly what I expected. Slick hair, expensive suit, the kind of smile that says he's never been told no. Derek Lamont looked like he'd stepped out of a men's magazine, tall, tanned, with the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. He was whispering something in Claire's ear now, making her giggle like a teenager. "Should we let them know we're here?" Olivia asked. "Oh, they'll know soon enough." I pulled out my phone and called room service. "Yes, this is Ben Walsh in Suite 512. I'd like to arrange a little surprise for the couple in 412. Something romantic, champagne, strawberries, maybe some flowers." I listened to the woman on the other end confirm the details, then added, "And please include a note. To the happy couples, from your upstairs neighbors. Enjoy your open marriage." Yes, couples, plural. "Thank you." Olivia stared at me with a mixture of admiration and horror. You're evil. I'm thorough. There's a difference. 20 minutes later, we heard shouting from the balcony below. I couldn't make out the words, but Claire's voice was unmistakable, sharp with anger and rising toward hysteria. Derek's deeper tones tried to calm her, but she wasn't having it. "Think they got our message?" Olivia asked. Before I could answer, someone pounded on our door. Hard, insistent knocks that echoed through the suite like gunshots. "That would be Claire," I said, straightening my shirt. "Showtime." I opened the door to find Claire standing in the hallway, her face flushed with anger and her hands clenched into fists. The red dress that had looked so elegant from above now seemed garish under the harsh hallway lights. Behind her, Derek lurked like a guilty shadow, his perfect hair slightly mussed. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Claire's voice was low and dangerous, the tone she used in courtrooms when she was about to destroy a witness. "Enjoying a romantic weekend getaway with my girlfriend." I stepped aside so she could see Olivia, who was curled up on the sofa with a glass of wine, looking perfectly at home. "You remember Olivia, don't you? Your sister?" Claire's jaw dropped. Whatever she'd expected, it wasn't this. "Olivia, what are you doing here?" "Same thing you are, apparently." Olivia raised her wine glass in a mock toast. "Exploring new experiences, opening up, growing as an individual." "This is insane." Claire pushed past me into the suite, Derek trailing behind her like a reluctant puppy. "Ben, we need to talk. Privately." "I don't think that's necessary. After all, we're all adults here. We're all part of this new arrangement." I gestured toward the seating area. "Please make yourselves comfortable. Can I get you a drink? We have champagne. Dom Perignon, actually. Your favorite." Derek cleared his throat, apparently deciding it was time to assert some masculine authority. "Look, Ben, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding at all, Derek. Claire wanted an open marriage, and I'm giving her exactly that. Full honesty and communication, just like she requested." I walked to the bar and began preparing drinks, taking my time with each step. Ice clinked against crystal. Liquor gurgled from expensive bottles. The mundane sounds of hospitality while my marriage imploded in real time. "How did you even know we were here?" Claire demanded. "Lucky coincidence. I booked this place weeks ago for a romantic getaway with Olivia. Imagine my surprise when I discovered you'd chosen the same resort for your romantic getaway with Derek." It was a lie, of course, but a plausible one. Claire's legal mind was already working through the implications, trying to figure out if I was telling the truth or if I'd somehow orchestrated this confrontation. "Weeks ago?" she repeated. "Right after our conversation about opening up our marriage. You inspired me, Claire. Made me realize what I was missing." I handed drinks around. Whiskey for the men, wine for the women. To new experiences. Nobody drank. Derek was studying me like I was a hostile takeover he needed to evaluate. "You're taking this remarkably well, Ben." "Why shouldn't I?" Claire's right. We were getting stagnant. This is exactly the kind of excitement our marriage needed. "But with her sister?" Derek's voice cracked slightly on the last word. "Olivia and I have always had a connection. Haven't we, sweetheart?" Olivia smiled and moved closer to me, slipping her arm around my waist. "Always. I just never acted on it because of Claire. But now that she's given us permission..." The look on Claire's face was priceless, a mixture of rage, betrayal, and something that might have been jealousy. She'd expected me to be devastated, to beg her to reconsider, to make her feel powerful and desired. Instead, I was treating her infidelity like a business transaction. "This is sick," she said finally. "This is what you wanted," I corrected. "An open marriage, full honesty, exploring connections with other people." "Not with my sister." "You didn't specify any restrictions. I assumed all options were on the table." Derek set down his untouched drink and stood. I think we should go. Nonsense. The night is young, and we're all here. Why don't we have dinner together? I made reservations at the resort's restaurant. A table for 4. You made reservations for 4? Claire's voice was barely above a whisper. Of course. I assumed we'd want to celebrate this new chapter in our lives, share our experiences, compare notes. The silence that followed was deafening. Claire stared at me like she was seeing a stranger, while Derek looked like he wanted to run for the hills. Olivia, to her credit, maintained her performance perfectly, loving girlfriend enjoying a romantic weekend with her successful boyfriend. I can't do this, Claire said finally. This is insane. What's insane about it? You wanted honesty, Claire. This is me being honest. I'm attracted to your sister. I enjoy her company. She makes me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Each word was carefully chosen, designed to hit Claire where it hurt most. Her pride, her sense of control, her assumption that she was irreplaceable. Olivia. Claire turned to her sister, desperation creeping into her voice. Tell me this is some kind of joke. Olivia looked at her for a long moment, then shook her head. I'm tired of being the backup sister, Claire. The one who gets your leftovers, your hand-me-downs, your pity invitations to family events. Ben sees me as more than just your younger sister. He sees me as a woman. You're both out of your minds. Are we? Or are we just playing by your rules? I moved to stand behind Olivia, my hands on her shoulders in a gesture of possession that mirrored Derek's earlier pose with Claire. You opened this door, sweetheart. Don't blame us for walking through it. Derek was edging toward the door, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation was taking. Maybe we should continue this discussion tomorrow, after everyone's had a chance to cool down. Excellent idea. I smiled at him with genuine warmth. We'll see you at breakfast. The restaurant opens at 7, but I recommend the 9 o'clock seating, more civilized. After they left, Olivia collapsed onto the sofa, her performance finally cracking. Holy shit, Ben. Did you see Claire's face? I saw it. She looked like you'd slapped her. Good. That was the point. Olivia studied me carefully. Are you okay? Really? I walked to the windows and looked out at the mountain landscape. Somewhere below us, Claire was probably crying or screaming or plotting her revenge. Derek was probably wondering how a simple affair had turned into psychological warfare. I'm fine, I said finally. Better than fine, actually. For the first time in months, I feel like I'm in control. What happens next? Next, we give them exactly what they deserve. Claire wants to play games? Fine. I've been in the hospitality business for 15 years. I know how to make sure my guests have an unforgettable experience. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found what I was looking for. Marco? It's Ben Walsh. I need a favor. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, with the kind of mountain air that made you feel like you could conquer the world. I was up early, as usual, drinking coffee on our private balcony and watching the sun paint the peaks gold. Below me, the resort was coming to life, staff preparing for another day of pampering wealthy guests, early risers heading out for morning hikes. Olivia emerged from the bedroom wearing one of the resort's plush robes, her hair tousled from sleep. She looked younger in the morning light, more vulnerable than the confident woman who'd played her part so perfectly the night before. Sleep well? I asked, handing her a cup of coffee. Better than I expected. That bed is like sleeping on a cloud. She settled into the chair beside me, pulling the robe tighter against the morning chill. Any sign of them? Not yet, but the day is young. As if summoned by our conversation, voices drifted up from the balcony below. Claire and Derek, having what sounded like a heated discussion. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Recriminations, accusations, the ugly aftermath of a romantic fantasy colliding with reality. Trouble in paradise? Olivia murmured. Sounds like it. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco. Package delivered as requested. Staff briefed on situation. Enjoy your stay. Perfect. Phase 2 was in motion. An hour later, we made our way to the resort's restaurant, a sun-drenched space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains. Most of the tables were occupied by couples enjoying intimate conversations over eggs, Benedict, and mimosas. The atmosphere was romantic, sophisticated, exactly the kind of place where wealthy people came to feel special. Claire and Derek were already seated at a corner table, their body language tense and uncomfortable. Claire had dark circles under her eyes that her makeup couldn't quite hide. Derek kept checking his phone like he was looking for an escape route. "Good morning," I called out cheerfully as Olivia and I approached their table. "Mind if we join you? The hostess said you'd requested a table for 4. Claire's head snapped up. "We didn't request anything." "Really? That's strange. The hostess specifically said you'd asked to dine with the couple from the honeymoon suite." I pulled out a chair for Olivia with exaggerated chivalry. Must have been a miscommunication. Derek was staring at me with undisguised hostility. "What game are you playing, Ben?" "No game. Just trying to make the best of an awkward situation. After all, we're all here for the same reason." "Which is?" "To explore new experiences, to grow as individuals, to strengthen our relationships through radical honesty." I signaled the waiter. "Champagne, please. The Dom Perignon. We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" Claire's voice was sharp with suspicion. "Our liberation. From conventional morality, from social expectations, from the boring constraints of traditional marriage." I raised my water glass in a mock toast. "To open relationships and the brave souls who dare to live authentically." The waiter arrived with the champagne, popping the cork with practiced efficiency. The sound echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot, drawing curious glances from other diners. "I don't want champagne," Claire said. "Of course you do. It's Dom Perignon. Your favorite, remember?" I watched the golden liquid foam into crystal flutes. "You had a glass just the other night. Left quite an impression." Claire's face went white. She knew I knew about her lie, about the lipstick on the glass, about all the small deceptions that had led us to this moment. "Ben," Derek said carefully, "I think you're misunderstanding the situation." "Am I? Please, enlighten me." Derek glanced at Claire, who was staring into her champagne like it might contain answers to questions she was afraid to ask. "What Claire and I have... It's not casual. We care about each other. This isn't just some fling." "How wonderful. Love is such a beautiful thing, don't you think, Olivia?" Olivia squeezed my hand under the table. "Absolutely. There's nothing more precious than finding someone who truly understands you." "Exactly. Someone who sees past the surface to the real person underneath. Someone who appreciates your unique qualities." I smiled at Derek with apparent sincerity. "Tell me, what first attracted you to Claire?" Derek looked uncomfortable, like he was being cross-examined by a hostile attorney. "She's intelligent, sophisticated, beautiful. All true, and wealthy, of course. That must be a nice bonus. It's not about money. Of course not. Although I imagine the lifestyle is appealing. The designer clothes, the luxury cars, the exclusive social circle." I leaned forward conspiratorially. "Between you and me, the overhead on a woman like Claire is substantial. The spa treatments alone cost more than most people's rent." "Ben!" Claire's voice was warning, dangerous. "What?" "I'm just being honest. Radical honesty, remember? That's what this is all about." A commotion at the entrance to the restaurant caught my attention. A woman in an expensive suit was arguing with the hostess, her voice rising with each word. She was attractive in a sharp, aggressive way, the kind of woman who was used to getting what she wanted through sheer force of personality. "That's interesting," I murmured. "What?" Olivia followed my gaze. The woman at the hostess station. She looks familiar. Derek had gone very still, his champagne flute frozen halfway to his lips. Claire noticed his reaction and turned to look at the woman, her lawyer instincts picking up on the sudden tension. Derek? Claire's voice was carefully neutral. Do you know her? Before Derek could answer, the woman spotted him. Her face lit up with a smile that was equal parts relief and fury. She strode across the restaurant like a woman on a mission, her heels clicking against the polished floor with military precision. Derek Lamont, she said loudly enough for half the restaurant to hear. Fancy meeting you here. Derek stood so quickly he nearly knocked over his chair. Jessica, what are you doing here? Looking for my husband. The word hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Claire's face went through a series of expressions, confusion, understanding, and finally, horror. Husband? Claire's voice was barely above a whisper. Jessica turned to her with predatory interest. And you must be the latest conquest. I have to say, he has good taste. I'm Jessica Lamont, Derek's wife. Ex-wife, Derek said quickly. We're divorced. Funny, because I never signed any papers. And my lawyer says you can't divorce someone without their knowledge. Jessica's smile was razor sharp. But don't worry, honey. You're not the first, and you probably won't be the last. Derek has a thing for married women, makes him feel powerful. Claire was staring at Derek like she'd never seen him before. You're married? It's complicated. It's really not, Jessica said cheerfully. He's a lying, cheating bastard who preys on lonely housewives. But I'm sure you already figured that out. The restaurant had gone quiet around us. Other diners were pretending to eat while straining to hear every word of the drama unfolding at our table. This was better than reality television. How did you find us? Derek asked, his composure finally cracking. Your credit card, genius. Amazing how easy it is to track someone when they're spending community property on their mistresses. Jessica pulled out a chair and sat down uninvited. I hope you don't mind if I join you. This looks like such a lovely celebration. I raised my champagne flute. The more the merrier, to new friends and unexpected reunions. Claire stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need some air. She walked away quickly, her heels clicking against the floor in rapid staccato beats. Derek started to follow her, but Jessica grabbed his arm. Let her go, sweetheart. She'll figure it out eventually. They always do. Derek shook her off and hurried after Claire, leaving the three of us alone at the table. Jessica watched them go with evident satisfaction. Well, she said, reaching for Derek's abandoned champagne. This is turning out to be a much more interesting weekend than I expected. How long have you been looking for him? Olivia asked. 6 months. Ever since I found out about the other accounts, the secret credit cards, the whole parallel life he'd been living. Jessica took a sip of champagne and sighed appreciatively. Good taste in champagne, I'll give him that. Terrible taste in everything else. I studied her carefully. What are you going to do now? Now? Now I'm going to enjoy a lovely weekend at a luxury resort, while my lawyers serve him with papers. Real papers this time, with real consequences. She smiled at me with genuine warmth. Thank you, by the way. For what? For the invitation. Your concierge friend Marco was very persuasive when he called. Said there was something I needed to see. Olivia stared at me in amazement. You arranged this? I made a phone call. Jessica made the choice to come. You beautiful, devious bastard, Jessica laughed. I like you already. What's your story? I told her, giving her the abbreviated version of Claire's proposal and my response. Jessica listened with the rapt attention of someone who understood betrayal on a cellular level. So, your wife wanted an open marriage so she could sleep with my husband, and you decided to give her exactly what she asked for. Something like that. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. She raised her glass. To revenge served cold, with a side of champagne and a mountain view. We clinked glasses while somewhere in the resort, Claire was probably having the worst morning of her life. Derek was probably trying to explain away his lies, making promises he had no intention of keeping, painting himself as the victim of circumstances beyond his control. "What happens now?" Olivia asked. Jessica smiled like a shark scenting blood in the water. "Now we watch them burn." The resort spa was a temple to relaxation and rejuvenation, all soft lighting and soothing music, and the kind of hushed reverence usually reserved for churches. Olivia had booked us couples massages, partly for the experience, partly to maintain our cover story, and partly because she'd never had a professional massage and was curious about what she'd been missing. I was lying face down on a heated table, letting a masseuse work the tension from my shoulders, when I heard familiar voices from the relaxation room next door. Claire and Derek, having what sounded like an intense conversation in the kind of whispered tones people used when they were trying not to be overheard. "Can't believe you lied to me about being married," Claire was saying. "I didn't lie. I just simplified the situation." "Simplified? Derek, your wife showed up at breakfast. Your wife who you claim you're divorced from but who says she never signed any papers. Jessica is unstable. She's been stalking me for months, making wild accusations. Is she lying about being married to you?" A long pause. "No." "Are you divorced?" Another pause. "Not technically." "What the hell does that mean?" "It means the paperwork got complicated. There were assets to consider, legal issues. You're still married. On paper, yes, but in every way that matters. You're still married," Claire repeated, her voice rising slightly before she caught herself and lowered it again. "Do you have any idea what this means for me, for my career? If this gets out, it won't get out. Jessica just wants attention. She'll make her scene and go home. She's talking to reporters, Derek. I saw her on the phone with someone from the Boston Globe. She mentioned my name." I smiled into the face cradle of my massage table. Jessica was even more thorough than I'd hoped. "That's impossible," Derek said. "How would she even know who you are?" "Apparently, she's been investigating you for months. She knows about all your affairs, Derek, all of them. She has photos, credit card records, hotel receipts. She's building a case." "For what?" "For divorce, for fraud, for whatever else her lawyers can think of." Claire's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "She showed me a file, Derek, a thick file with my name on it. She knows where I work, where I live, what kind of car I drive. She knows about our dinners, our meetings, everything. She's bluffing." "Is she?" Because she seemed pretty confident when she told me she was going to destroy both of us. There was a long silence. I could picture Derek's mind working, trying to find an angle, a way to spin this disaster into something manageable. "Look," he said finally, "we just need to be smart about this. Lay low for a while. Let her cool down." "Lay low?" "Derek, I'm a corporate lawyer. My reputation is everything. If this becomes public knowledge, I'm finished." "You're overreacting." "Am I?" "Because your wife seemed to think my partners would be very interested to know about our relationship, especially the senior partner whose wife you apparently also slept with." I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing out loud. Jessica had really done her homework. "Margaret Thornfield was years ago," Derek said weakly. "Margaret Thornfield is the wife of the managing partner of my law firm, Derek. The man who decides whether I make equity partner this year." "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate? That's your response? Unfortunate?" "Claire, please. We can figure this out. We just need to think." "I'm done thinking. I'm done with this whole situation." I heard the sound of movement, like Claire was getting up from her chair. This was a mistake, a huge, catastrophic mistake. "Don't say that. What we have is real. What we have is a disaster. What we have is the end of my career and possibly my marriage." "Your marriage was already over. You said so yourself." "My marriage was stagnant. There's a difference. Claire's voice was bitter now, full of regret. At least Ben never lied to me about being married to someone else. Ben's playing games with you, Claire. This whole thing with your sister is exactly what I asked for. An open marriage, full honesty, and communication. You can't seriously believe he's really interested in Olivia. Why not? She's beautiful, intelligent, artistic. She's everything I used to be before I became a corporate drone obsessed with billable hours and equity partnerships. She's a nobody, a community college art teacher who lives in a studio apartment. And I'm a somebody who's about to lose everything because I was stupid enough to believe your lies. The conversation was getting heated, their voices rising despite the spa's peaceful atmosphere. Other guests were starting to notice, looking around with the kind of polite curiosity that rich people displayed when someone else's drama was unfolding in their vicinity. Mrs. Walsh, my masseuse, a serene woman named Linda, was speaking softly near my ear. I'm sorry, but we're going to need to ask you to keep your voice down. This is a relaxation space. I realized she was talking to Claire, not me. Claire must have come into the main spa area, probably trying to get away from Derek. I'm sorry, Claire said, her voice tight with embarrassment. I'll go. Actually, Linda said diplomatically, perhaps you'd be more comfortable in one of our private relaxation suites. We have a lovely space available, very secluded. That's not necessary. I'm leaving. I heard footsteps moving away, then Derek's voice calling after her. Claire, wait, don't do this. But she was gone, leaving Derek alone with his lies and his rapidly shrinking options. The masseuse working on me, a young man named Kevin, leaned down to whisper in my ear. Wow, that was intense. Divorce, I whispered back, makes people crazy. Tell me about it. We see it all the time here, rich people having meltdowns in paradise. After our massages, Olivia and I retreated to the relaxation room, where we found Jessica lounging in a comfortable chair, sipping cucumber water and looking like the cat who'd eaten the canary. How did it go? I asked. Better than expected. Your wife is smart. I'll give her that. Took her about 5 minutes to realize she'd been played. And Derek? Still trying to convince himself he can talk his way out of this. Men like Derek never learn. They think charm and confidence can overcome any obstacle. Olivia settled into the chair next to Jessica, wrapping herself in one of the spa's plush robes. What's your next move? Well, I've already called my lawyer, my private investigator, and a reporter friend who specializes in financial fraud. By Monday morning, Derek's going to be famous for all the wrong reasons. What about Claire? Jessica considered this. That depends on her. If she cooperates with my investigation, I might be inclined to keep her name out of the worst of it. If she doesn't, she shrugged elegantly. Collateral damage. She's not a bad person, I said quietly. Selfish, maybe. Naive, definitely. But not evil. Neither was I, before Derek got his claws into me. Funny how betrayal changes your perspective on things like mercy and forgiveness. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the spa's ambient music and the distant sound of voices from other parts of the facility. It was peaceful, almost meditative, the calm before the storm that was about to engulf Derek and, by extension, Claire. Ben, Olivia said finally, are you sure about this? Once this gets out, there's no taking it back. I thought about Claire's face that morning at breakfast, the shock and horror when she realized Derek had been lying to her. I thought about the champagne glass with the wrong lipstick, about months of late nights and mysterious phone calls, about the casual cruelty of asking me to give her permission to cheat. I'm sure, I said. Jessica raised her cucumber water in a toast. To justice served cold, with a side of karma and a mountain view. We clinked glasses while somewhere in the resort, Derek was probably planning his next lie, and Claire was probably wondering how her perfect plan had gone so spectacularly wrong. The game was almost over. Time for the final move. The resort's main dining room was buzzing with the kind of subdued excitement that only came from witnessing someone else's public humiliation. Word had spread quickly through the small community of wealthy guests, the drama at breakfast, the confrontation in the spa, the mysterious arrival of Derek's supposedly ex-wife. By dinner time, everyone was watching and waiting for the next act of the unfolding soap opera. I'd reserved a table for 6 in the center of the dining room, with perfect sight lines to every other table. Claire and Derek sat across from Olivia and me, while Jessica held court at the head of the table, like a queen presiding over her subjects. The arrangement was deliberate. I wanted everyone in the restaurant to see us together, to witness the final act of this carefully orchestrated performance. Claire looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her makeup was perfect, her hair styled with professional precision, but there was something hollow about her eyes, something defeated in the way she held herself. She'd ordered wine with dinner and was working her way through it with the methodical determination of someone trying to numb herself to reality. Derek, meanwhile, was putting on a brave face, playing the role of the successful businessman, enjoying a romantic weekend getaway. But I could see the cracks in his facade, the way his hand trembled slightly when he reached for his water glass, the nervous glances he kept shooting toward the entrance as if expecting more unwelcome surprises. "So, Jessica," I said, cutting into my perfectly prepared steak, "what's next for you? After all this legal business is settled, I mean." Jessica smiled, the expression transforming her sharp features into something almost beautiful. "I'm thinking of taking a long vacation. Maybe Europe. Derek always promised to take me to Paris, but somehow we never quite made it." "Paris is lovely this time of year," Olivia offered. "I spent a semester there in college studying art." "How wonderful. You'll have to give me some recommendations." Claire set down her wine glass with enough force to make it ring against the table. "Could we please stop pretending this is a normal dinner conversation? We all know why we're here." "Do we?" I asked mildly. "I thought we were here to celebrate your open marriage, to toast new beginnings and radical honesty." "This isn't honesty, Ben. This is revenge." "Is it? I'm just following your rules, Claire. You wanted to explore connections with other people, and I'm exploring my connection with Olivia. You wanted full communication, and I'm being completely transparent about my feelings." "Your feelings?" Claire's voice was sharp with disbelief. "You don't have feelings for Olivia. This is all just an elaborate game to humiliate me." "Why can't it be both?" Olivia said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "Why can't Ben be getting revenge and also have genuine feelings for me?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I looked at Olivia, really looked at her, and realized that somewhere between planning this elaborate scheme and executing it, something had shifted. The woman sitting next to me wasn't just Claire's sister anymore, wasn't just a prop in my revenge fantasy. She was Olivia, funny, intelligent, artistic, kind. Everything Claire had been once, before ambition and status had hardened her into someone I barely recognized. "Because it's sick," Claire said finally. "She's my sister, Ben. My sister. And Derek is married to someone else. But that didn't stop you." "That's different." "How?" Claire opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. "How do you explain that your betrayal is justified while your husband's is unforgivable? How do you rationalize selfishness when it's turned back on you?" Derek, who'd been silent through most of the exchange, finally spoke up. "This has gone far enough. Claire, we're leaving." "Are you?" Jessica asked sweetly. "Because I took the liberty of having a few words with the resort management about the fraudulent credit cards, the identity theft, the use of stolen funds to pay for this little getaway." Derek went very still. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the credit cards you opened in my name, Derek, the ones you've been using to finance your affairs, the ones that are technically federal crimes. You can't prove that." "Actually, I can. Funny thing about paper trails, they're very hard to erase once you know where to look." Jessica pulled out her phone and scrolled through what looked like bank statements. Room 412, charged to a credit card in Jessica Lamont's name. Dinner at Chez Laurent last week. Same card. That lovely bracelet you bought Claire for her birthday. Also my card. Claire's hand went instinctively to her wrist, where a delicate gold bracelet caught the light. Derek? It's complicated, Derek said weakly. It's theft, Jessica corrected, and fraud, and a dozen other felonies that carry serious prison time. The color drained from Derek's face. Around us, other diners were pretending to eat while straining to hear every word. This was better than dinner theater. What do you want? Derek asked. What I've always wanted, a divorce, a fair settlement, and justice. And if I agree, then maybe I'll be satisfied with civil remedies. Maybe I won't press criminal charges. Derek looked at Claire, who was staring at her bracelet like it might bite her. Claire? Don't, she said quietly. Don't ask me to choose between you and my career. Don't ask me to be an accessory to fraud. It's not fraud. It's a misunderstanding. It's over, Derek. Claire's voice was flat, emotionless. Whatever this was, whatever I thought it was, it's over. She stood up, her movements careful and controlled, like she was afraid she might fall if she moved too quickly. I'm going home tomorrow. I'm going to call my partners and tell them everything before they hear it from someone else, and then I'm going to figure out how to salvage what's left of my life. She looked at me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Congratulations, Ben, you won. But as I watched her walk away, her shoulders straight and her head held high despite everything, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt like someone who'd gotten exactly what he'd asked for and discovered it wasn't what he'd wanted after all. Well, Jessica said, breaking the silence. That was dramatic. Derek was slumped in his chair, looking like a man who'd just watched his world collapse. I need a drink. You need a lawyer, Jessica corrected. Several lawyers, actually. Criminal, civil, maybe bankruptcy, depending on how deep this hole goes. Derek stood up without another word and walked away, leaving us alone at the table. Around us, the restaurant was buzzing with excited conversation as other guests dissected what they'd just witnessed. So, Olivia said finally, what happens now? I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who'd been caught up in my revenge plot but had somehow emerged as more than just collateral damage. Someone who'd played her part perfectly, but had also shown me glimpses of what life could be like with someone who actually enjoyed my company. Now, I said, we figure out what's real and what was just performance. And if it's real, then we see where it goes. And if it was just performance, then we had a hell of a show. Olivia smiled, and for the first time in days, it felt genuine. Either way, it's been an interesting weekend. That's one word for it. We finished our dinner in comfortable silence, watching through the windows as the sun set behind the mountains. Tomorrow, we'd drive back to Boston and deal with the wreckage of our old lives. Claire would try to salvage her career. Derek would try to stay out of prison. Jessica would get her divorce and her justice. And me? I'd gotten my revenge, served cold with a side of champagne and a mountain view. Whether I'd also found something worth keeping remained to be seen. But as Olivia reached across the table and took my hand, her fingers warm and real and completely unlike the calculated gestures of my marriage, I thought maybe, just maybe, the best revenge was living well. The next morning, I woke up alone in the honeymoon suite. Olivia had taken the couch, maintaining the fiction of our relationship even in private, even when no one was watching. I found her on the balcony, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. Second thoughts? I asked, joining her with my own cup. Third and fourth thoughts, actually, but not about what you think. What about, then? About Claire. About whether she deserved all this. I considered the question while sipping my coffee. Below us, the resort was coming to life, staff preparing for another day of pampering wealthy guests, early risers heading out for morning hikes. It looked peaceful, civilized, nothing like the battlefield it had become over the past few days. She asked for an open marriage so she could cheat guilt-free, I said finally. She lied about where she was, who she was with, what she was doing. She was willing to destroy our marriage for a man she barely knew. And you were willing to destroy her career for revenge. I was willing to give her exactly what she asked for. Was I part of what she asked for? The question hung between us like a challenge. Olivia was looking at me with those green eyes that saw too much, that cut through bullshit and pretense to the truth underneath. No, I admitted. You were my addition to the program. And now? Now I don't know. This whole thing started as revenge, but somewhere along the way, it became something else. What? A chance to remember who I used to be before I became half of a power couple. A chance to be with someone who actually likes me instead of just tolerating me. Olivia was quiet for a long moment, watching the mountains change color as the sun climbed higher. When she spoke, her voice was soft, thoughtful. I've been in love with you for 5 years, Ben. Since the first time Claire brought you home for Sunday dinner and you helped me fix my car in the driveway. You were kind to me when you didn't have to be, interested in my art when everyone else saw it as a hobby, funny in a way that made me feel like I was in on the joke instead of being the joke. I stared at her, speechless. But I never said anything because you were married to my sister, and I'm not the kind of person who breaks up marriages. Even when I could see that Claire was taking you for granted. Even when I could see that you were unhappy. I kept my mouth shut and played the supportive sister-in-law. Olivia, let me finish. She turned to face me, her expression serious. This weekend, playing your girlfriend, pretending to be in love with you. It wasn't pretending, Ben. It was the first time in 5 years I got to be honest about how I feel. And now? Now I don't know if what you feel for me is real, or if I'm just a convenient way to hurt Claire. I set down my coffee cup and moved closer to her, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her green eyes, close enough to smell her perfume mixed with mountain air. It started as revenge, I said. But it became real somewhere between the champagne toast and watching you stand up to Claire in the restaurant. You're not just Claire's sister, Olivia. You're not just a way to hurt her. You're the woman who makes me laugh, who sees the world in ways I never thought of, who makes me want to be better than I am. And Claire? Claire and I have been over for months. We just didn't admit it until she forced the issue. Olivia searched my face like she was looking for lies, for hidden motives, for signs that this was just another performance. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from her all weekend. So what happens now? Now we go home and figure out how to build something real out of all this wreckage. Your friends are going to think you're crazy, leaving your successful lawyer wife for her struggling artist sister. My friends are going to think what they want to think regardless. Besides, most of them were Claire's friends anyway. And your family? Will adjust or they won't. I'm 40 years old, Olivia. Too old to live my life based on other people's expectations. She kissed me then, soft and tentative at first, then with growing confidence as I responded. It tasted like coffee and possibility, like second chances and new beginnings. When we broke apart, she was smiling. This is going to be complicated. The best things usually are. Claire will never forgive us. Claire will survive. She's tougher than she looks. And Derek? Derek will probably be too busy with lawyers to worry about us. We packed in companionable silence, folding clothes and gathering toiletries like we were dismantling the set of an elaborate play. Which, in a way, we were. The performance was over. The real story was just beginning. As we loaded our luggage into my BMW, Marco appeared at my elbow like a well-dressed ghost. I trust everything was satisfactory, Mr. Walsh? More than satisfactory. Thank you for all your help. My pleasure. I do so enjoy a happy ending. Is it a happy ending? Marco glanced toward the resort entrance where Derek was arguing with someone on his phone while a bellhop waited patiently with his luggage. For some people, certainly. For others, he shrugged eloquently. One person's ending is another person's beginning, no? As we drove away from Mountain Vista Resort, I caught a glimpse of Claire in my rearview mirror. She was standing alone on her balcony, still in her robe, watching us leave. For a moment, I felt something that might have been regret. Then Olivia put her hand on my arm, and I looked ahead instead of behind. "Any regrets?" she asked, as if reading my thoughts. "About Claire?" "No. She made her choice when she decided to cheat instead of trying to fix our marriage." "About the revenge?" I considered this as we wound our way down the mountain road, leaving the resort and all its drama behind us. Ask me again in a year, when the dust has settled and we know how this all turns out. And if I asked you now I'd say that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's getting out. 3 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a loft in the arts district that Olivia had helped me find, reading the morning paper over coffee. Derek Lamont's fraud trial was front-page news in the business section. Jessica had gotten her divorce and a substantial settlement. Derek was looking at 5 to 10 years in federal prison. Claire had managed to keep her job, barely, by cooperating fully with the investigation and throwing herself on the mercy of her partners. She'd moved to the firm's Chicago office, a lateral transfer that was really a demotion in everything but title. We hadn't spoken since that last morning at the resort. My phone rang, interrupting my reading. Olivia's name appeared on the screen. "Good morning, beautiful." "Good morning yourself. Did you see the paper?" "Just reading it now. Derek got what he deserved." "And Claire?" "Got what she chose. There's a difference. Are you okay with that?" I looked around my new apartment, smaller than the house I'd shared with Claire, but warmer somehow. Olivia's paintings hung on the walls, splashes of color and life that made the space feel like home. Her easel stood by the windows, where the morning light was perfect for painting. "I'm okay with it," I said. "I'm okay with all of it." "Good, because I'm making dinner tonight, and I need you to stop by the market on your way home." Home. Such a simple word, but it meant everything. "What are we having?" "Something new. I found a recipe I want to try. Adventurous." "I'm feeling adventurous these days." After she hung up, I finished reading the article about Derek's trial. The reporter had done a thorough job, detailing not just the fraud charges, but the pattern of manipulation and betrayal that had led to his downfall. There was a quote from Jessica near the end. "Sometimes, the best thing that can happen to you is discovering who someone really is before it's too late." I folded the paper and finished my coffee, then got ready for work. I had clients to see, trips to plan, dreams to make reality for people who could afford to buy their fantasies. It was good work, satisfying work, and I was better at it now than I'd ever been. Maybe because I finally understood the difference between what people said they wanted and what they actually needed. Maybe because I'd learned that sometimes the most beautiful destinations were the ones you never planned to visit. Or maybe because I'd discovered that the best revenge wasn't destroying your enemies, it was building something better than what they'd tried to take away from you. That evening, I walked home through the arts district, past galleries and coffee shops, and the kind of small businesses that made a neighborhood feel like a community. Olivia was waiting for me in our kitchen, wearing an apron over paint-stained jeans, her hair pulled back in a messy bun that somehow made her look more beautiful than Claire had ever looked in her designer dresses. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing me hello. "Perfect," I said, and meant it. We ate dinner by candlelight, talking about her latest painting and my newest client and the vacation we were planning for next month. Normal things, everyday things, the kind of conversations that build a life together one word at a time. Later, As we cleaned up the dishes, Olivia asked the question I'd been expecting for months. Do you ever miss it? The old life? I thought about the designer house with its perfect furniture and cold atmosphere, about the social events where everyone performed their success for each other's approval, about the marriage that had looked perfect from the outside but had been hollow at its core. No, I said. I don't miss any of it. Not even a little? Not even a little. She smiled and handed me a dish to dry. Good, because I have something to tell you. Oh? I got a call today, from a gallery in New York. They want to show my work. I set down the dish and pulled her into my arms. Olivia, that's incredible. When? Next spring. It's just a group show, but still nothing. This is huge. It means I might have to travel more, spend time in New York building relationships with collectors. So we'll figure it out. I travel for work all the time. Now we can travel together. You'd do that? Give up your life here to follow me around the art world? I'd do that to build a life with you, wherever that life takes us. She kissed me then, long and deep, tasting like wine and possibility. When we broke apart, she was crying. Happy tears, she said quickly. Very happy tears. Good, because I have something to tell you too. What? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Olivia's eyes went wide. Ben, it's not what you think. Well, it is what you think, but not yet. I opened the box to reveal a simple gold ring with a small but perfect diamond. It's a promise ring, a promise that when you're ready, when we're both sure this is real and not just the aftermath of my revenge plot, I want to marry you. And if I'm never ready, then I'll love you anyway, for as long as you'll let me. She took the ring from the box and slipped it onto her right hand, the opposite of where a wedding ring would go. It fit perfectly. How did you know my size? I asked your sister. You asked Claire? I asked your other sister, the one who actually likes me. Olivia laughed, the sound bright and joyful in our small kitchen. I love you, Ben Walsh. I love you too, Olivia Harper. Even though I'm just a nobody art teacher who lives in a studio apartment? Especially because you're a somebody artist who's about to show in New York galleries. We finished the dishes in comfortable silence, moving around each other with the easy familiarity of people who'd chosen to build something together. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Inside, we had everything we needed. Later, as we lay in bed listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling into sleep, Olivia asked one last question. Do you think Claire is happy? I considered this. Claire had lost her marriage, her lover, her social circle, and nearly her career. She'd been forced to start over in a new city, building a new life from the wreckage of her old one. I think Claire is learning who she really is when she's not trying to be someone else, I said finally. And maybe that's more important than happy. And us? Are we happy? I pulled her closer, feeling the warmth of her body against mine, breathing in the scent of her hair mixed with paint and possibility. We're real, I said, and that's better than happy. How is it better? Because real lasts. Happy is just a moment. Real is forever. She was quiet for so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then she spoke, her voice soft in the darkness. I used to think you were too good for Claire. Now I think maybe you were just too real for her. And now? Now I think we're both exactly real enough for each other. I kissed the top of her head and closed my eyes, listening to her breathing slow and deepen as she drifted off to sleep. Tomorrow, we'd wake up and build another day of our real life together. We'd face whatever challenges came our way, Olivia's family's disapproval, the whispers of people who thought our relationship was built on revenge rather than love, the normal complications of two people learning to share a life. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of our bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of the life we'd chosen to build together, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Claire had wanted an open marriage, and I'd given her exactly that. A marriage so open, it had fallen apart completely, leaving room for something better to grow in its place. Derek had wanted to play games with other people's lives, and he'd discovered that some games had consequences he wasn't prepared to pay. And me? I'd wanted revenge, but I'd found something better. I'd found home.